University podcast, where it's all about a transformational growth and having a resilient mindset. Today's guest is Angela Lewis. She's a professional basketball player that grew up in St. Louis. She's experienced some adversities in her life, and she's here to tell us how she got through that. She's now a successful woman that's in the public relations business, and she have a very interesting story, and I can't wait to get into this conversation today. Let's go. Angela, welcome to the Overcome Adversity podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Hi, Michael. I'm so excited to chat with you. Thank you so much for the invite.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we've spoken, we've had this conversation, and you were telling me about growing up in St. Louis and what it was like. And then, as a woman that was in the basketball space, you experienced some significant things that I thought was so profound. And I said, we have to hear your story and you have to share that to some of our listeners. We know that there's many women, there's many kids out there that have these hopes and dreams. And throughout life, you got to navigate that when you're in different pockets of life and things like that. And you did an exceptional job of doing that. And I thought we have to share your story.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's amazing how, the challenges that you overcome end up being roadmaps for other people in the future. And so I hope that sharing my story with your audience can help someone else on their path as well.
Without a doubt. So, you know that I'm a basketball fan. I love hoops and things like that. And my passion for basketball came from watching Charles Barkley and seeing him battle against Michael Jordan when he was with the Phoenix Suns in Philadelphia was a thing for me. So, if you can, tell us, how did your love and your passion started for the sport of basketball?
My love and passion started for basketball by not liking basketball at all. Like I am 6'1" tall, and I've been this tall since I was 12 years old. And so I never thought about playing sports or even playing basketball, but there was a coach that saw me coming out of Blockbuster Video one day,
It don't even
and
exist
he
anymore.
looks right. It doesn't even exist. It's crazy. He goes, "Do you play basketball?" Of course, I say yes, but I wasn't very good. I'd only played in the backyard in a tiny area, in our backyard in the city of St. Louis, and so I went to practice, and these girls were amazing. What I did know, Michael, is that it was a select team. I didn't know that it was a team that traveled around the country. So I was really blessed at a young age to be kind of gifted the game of basketball. And my parents, of course, supported me, and mom traveled with us. But basketball opened all the doors. And I'll say this, we didn't travel when I was growing up to places other than Memphis, Tennessee, and Mount Bayou, Mississippi.
Hmm.
And when I started playing basketball, it really gave our family an opportunity to go new places. And ultimately, I received a Division I scholarship at St. Louis University, played professionally in Germany, coached college basketball at a number of different schools and professionally. And so I'm so grateful for the game and the doors that have opened because of it.
That's absolutely amazing. As I'm listening to you share your story, I could think about at such a young age and being vulnerable, your parents allowing you to do something like that. Can you talk a little bit about the risk it was for you to take that on and the responsibility that your parents took on for allowing their daughter to even step out into that space? Because as I think about it, at that particular time when I was a kid, my parents used to always like tell us to like stay in the house, or it was only like school and here, school and back. But to be able to start traveling to these different states and getting into all of these athletic sports, it could be quite challenging where parents may not want their child to do this. So you could talk a little bit about the risk and what it was like for you guys just even take a leap of faith in allowing you just to travel and play sports.
Sure, there were probably two big risks. One was financial. My parents didn't have a lot of money, right? So we grew up like actually on the corner on Saturday mornings with our team with the White Castle's Cup, McDonald's Cup, asking people for money so that we could go to these tournaments. So my parents sacrificed in that way. And my mom was always there. So it wasn't until I was 16 or 17 where I actually started going to these places alone, and coaches were vetted and people were vetted. So it was it was not only a commitment on my part, but it was also a commitment on my family's part to be a part of this crazy youth sports world that required so much of us and them.
Wow. I know that there's a dark side to some aspects of life and some people's story. And I was reading through your bio and some of the stories that you shared. And at the age of 8, you did experience something significant. And I
Mhm.
can't imagine any child going through something like that. And if you would, can you talk a little bit about maybe the impacts of that if you don't even want to go into the story? And I'm thinking, and I'm asking that question
Mhm.
from the aspects of now getting into sports and being able to travel
Sure.
and the vulnerability of coming with that, being a woman or being a young lady in that sport.
Mhm.
And either is going to be some encounters with different women, different type of men and stuff like that. And then the vulnerability that comes with your parents saying yes to stay in that sport.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. I don't mind sharing at all. So when I was 8 years old, I was molested by a neighbor. And that experience was very traumatic because I didn't know what was happening. And later realized that my family didn't know what happened because I didn't have the um, ability to speak and share what was happening. I just cried when I was asked, what happened in the scenario. And so I think that's another reason why my mother was adamant about being there, especially when I started playing younger, when I started playing when I was younger. And then I have older brothers who were always there. So I'm grateful that I've always felt protected while traveling and while playing sports, but I am hypersensitive to um, situations where young women can be vulnerable, and always aware that these things can happen, and it's important that they have spaces where they feel comfortable to share.
Absolutely. So I commend you for having the courage to share that with your parents. I guess, in this day and age and things where that stuff is still sort of kind of like not out there where people are talking about it, can you just lend a little bit of advice or something that were of that magnitude? If a child or a parent that's listening right now to this podcast and they said, hey, you know what, let me find out if my daughter is experiencing something like this
Mhm.
or have experienced something like this, what are some encouraging words or some things or some tips that you could share to that 8-year-old child or that mom that has an 8-year-old right now that they don't even know what's going on?
I would say continue to ask the questions, because at 8 years old, you may not have the emotional capacity to say, "Here's what happened to me." And oftentimes, if a kid doesn't say anything, or if someone doesn't say anything, we assume that they're over it, right? Like it's over. And so maybe go back to them and say, "I know this happened. I know this was sensitive. Is this something you want to talk about? Would you like to share?" And of course, their therapy and their professionals who can help. But I guess I'll say don't let it die if they haven't worked through that. Because what I found that manifested in my life is that I had a really hard time expressing when I was uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And it took years for me to realize and be able to point that back to that moment, because I was scared in that moment, because I didn't know what was happening in that moment. I literally didn't have the capacity or the ability to say I'm uncomfortable, or that made me uncomfortable. So it took a long time for me to develop the courage really to be able to say that.
Well, so your story started when you was in St. Louis, and I commend you for being able to do that coming out of St. Louis, because when I think about St. Louis, the stories that I heard, even from South Florida, that it was nothing but violence, lots of gangs, and all of these things. And you were able to still make it through that. So thank you for sharing that. Can you talk
You're
about
welcome.
growing up in St. Louis, some of the things that you've had to face to make it to the collegiate ranks, and then through the by means of basketball through your talent? Can you talk about what was that like and the ability or the opportunity for you where it opened up doors for you to be able to travel and play that sport now?
Sure. Every place I think has its pros and cons and good and things that aren't so great. I grew up in the city of St. Louis, mid 90s. Gangs were in most inner cities pretty
Correct.
rampant. There were nights we'd hear gunshots. And I think sports really allowed me and my family. I'm so grateful to have a supportive family, but it allowed us to see that there was more out there, that there were other places that you can go, and that basketball could pave the way for these extra opportunities. Two of my older brothers actually played college basketball as well. And so they went on, both of them played in Florida. They went to community college and played at Barry University right outside of
I'm familiar
Miami.
with
And
Barry.
so,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's so, we all grew up in the hood in St. Louis, but we had opportunities to have supportive parents that allowed us to go out there and try the sport of basketball, which really changed everything for us.
Wow, I love it. As you're telling me that, I've had the opportunity to travel a good bit as an adult, but from being a veteran serving. And what we did is like everywhere that I traveled to do any activity for veterans that may be struggling with like PTSD, mental health issues, we do quite a bit of recreational activities. And what I was doing was I was taking my kids. So growing up in Miami, we're taking them to Alaska, we're taking them to Maine, we're taking them to Washington, D.C., we're taking them to all of these different places to have them experience different cultures. And now we have one of them that's 23 years old, another one that's 16. But we've seen the impact on them now in regards to them being so cultured and being able to just be flexible. They're agile. They could adapt to different situations and things. And holding different types of conversation with different types of people just from those experiences. So I truly get what you're saying.
Yes, being able to see the world and see I mean, the US in and of itself is so big, and you can get a very amazing diverse experience.
Wow.
So, I'm glad your kids are experiencing
Thank
that.
you. So let's talk a little bit about once you went to college, and can you talk a little bit about what was your college experience like? Because you had the opportunity to play for a really cool university, and I admire that. So tell us a taste of your collegiate experience and just playing NCAA and all that. What was that like for you?
There is nothing that compares to college athletics. NCAA Division One sports is amazing. I mean, it is the greatest gift is being able to push yourself further, because you get pushed in ways that you cannot imagine. Your heart, your strength, your courage, your willingness to connect with your team. You get pushed in ways that you didn't even know was possible and that you had in you. And so it was definitely a gift to play college sports and to travel to other places and see different arenas and to compete at the highest level. So grateful for that time. And the friendships that you make last forever.
So what type of basketball player were you? And did you look at any basketball player and say like I want my game to be like that particular type of person?
I was incredibly competitive, really kind person off the court, but completely different person in between those
Hmm.
lines. Like very competitive. I grew up with older brothers, so all I knew was like how to fight.
Hmm.
However, I wasn't very athletic, right? I didn't jump out the gym, but I worked and worked. And so I had a pretty good career. I modeled my game after Shamiqua Holesclaw. Love Shamiqua Holesclaw. She played at the University of Tennessee for the Washington Wizards, and I just loved her approach to the game.
I'll edit this part of the video, but you're talking and it picked up my cell phone. So
It's okay.
all right.
Not a problem.
All right, let's pick it back up.
Okay. I was saying that I really love Tamika Holesclaw game. She played at the University of Tennessee with Tamika Catching, Tamika Randall. I mean, they had some incredible teams. So, and that was the time when women's basketball was just beginning to catch some media attention, and games were being aired on cable networks. And so I really, really loved her as a player.
So during your collegiate years, what was a significant moment or any moments that stood out to you? Because you've played a gamut of games, you've had some highlight
Mm.
reels and things like that. Was there anything that stuck out, or was there a particular coach that you've met that, or a player that you've met where we could say like I played against this person and they were at the highest level and I D'd them up, or I blocked their ball, or I made a three on them, or something
Mhm.
like that? Did you have any moment that stick out?
The moment that sticks out is a team moment.
Right.
Speaking of the University of Tennessee, we played the University of Tennessee in Puerto Rico
Mhm.
at a tournament. And with us, it was our school, and I mean, it was our team, our coaches, our trainer, a handful of people. University of Tennessee brought hundreds of people to to Puerto Rico to play us,
Uh,
and I'll never forget before the game. We were getting ourselves hyped, and we were talking about how great it would be to win, and we did win. No, we lost pretty bad, but we got Pat to call a timeout within the first few minutes of the game when we competed. But seeing what I learned is all Division One isn't created equal,
mhm.
and to see just the number of people that supported Pat Summit and women's basketball, and she was a legend. So to literally be on the court with Pat Summit was really special.
Awesome, awesome. So, once your collegiate career was finished, I know that you had the hopes and dreams of going to the WNBA. What was that transition like for you? Because not everyone makes it to the league. Some people go overseas if they do not. So, can you talk a little bit about what was that transition like for you, the tryouts and all of that?
Mhm. The WNBA was like you said, everyone's dream, and so I found out about this pro combine that was happening, and I paid the money, signed up to go to this combine, and the day of the event, I show up to the gym at the time that they said the combine was happening, and everyone was leaving.
Wow.
They were walking out. I will never forget seeing one of the players with ice on her shoulder, her knees wrapped with ice. And I'm like, what's going on? She was like, oh, we're done. I go in and talk to the event organizer, and I ask what happened. This wasn't supposed to start until later. And she said, oh, we changed the time.
Really?
And yeah, oh, I was devastated, devastated because I really wanted to play. I was prepared. I worked really hard to prepare for that moment.
Hmm.
And anyone who's worked their butt off, you just assume it's going to go well and in your favor. And so I never could have predicted that something like a time change would happen and I wouldn't be able to play. So I broke down, cried, like I was really upset about it. But I knew I wanted to continue to play. And so one of my coaches reached out to someone who knew an agent in Germany. We sent my tape. That's how old I am. We sent my tape to them, and I had an agent represent me, and I was so excited. So I went on to play in Germany. Had never didn't have a passport, had to get that, and never traveled outside the country. This is pre WhatsApp, pre video calling. And so I was excited to explore and to go hoop and see where basketball would take me.
Looking back at it, do you think about what the advantage that players have now when it comes to like the YouTubes, the social media, and being able to leverage those types of platforms in regards to like getting that notoriety to get in front of the right person and trying to
Mhm.
make it to the league? What do you think about that?
I don't think it's an
Okay.
advantage in terms because everyone has it.
Hmm.
So it'd be different if only a few people have it. I think it allows you to get more exposure
Hmm.
quickly, but everyone's seeking exposure. There's only so many hours in the day. Um, and a lot of people have trainers. So it doesn't negate the fact that you still have to do the work. You can put up highlight reels, but coaches who know the game, they know if you're good enough or not, or if you just clipped all the shots, made all the clips of the shots you made. So I think it helps people to be able to see you, but at the same time, they have to be able to see you because there's so much content and so many people posting.
Right, right. So being able to go to Germany, I could imagine that's an amazing experience. But knowing you've been traveling as a kid, but now you're getting ready to go overseas. Can you talk a little bit more now in regards to like you just had this disappointment when it came to like the tryouts and
Mhm.
what turned out, but now you're getting ready to leave your family and you're going ready to go over Germany and be in a new atmosphere, a new country, a new language. What was that like for you and just being able to say goodbye to your family and saying hello to a new family?
I didn't speak German. I didn't know anything about the culture, of course, outside of what you learn in history class about World War
Right.
II. But outside of that, I just didn't know. And we didn't have YouTube, so I couldn't look up all the videos. So everything was new, from the sights, the sounds, the smells. Everything was really new. And I was nervous because I didn't know anyone outside of my agent. And then I got to know the team. But what I know now that I didn't know then is my nature is kind of, I'm an explorer by
Right.
nature, so I'm excited to see new
Hmm.
things. But it was tremendous experience, and I highly recommend people traveling abroad. As we talked about, I lived in Medellin, Colombia for a few years, and I would not, had I not had that experience at 21, 22, I'm not sure I would have had that experience most recently.
Absolutely. So I know that for myself, when I traveled in the service, I was in a relationship, and I struggled with the hesitation of like maintaining that relationship in regards to like long
Mhm.
distance relationship. And that affected the person that I was dating to the point we broke up because it just was not going to work. And then I also thought about when I was overseas, we were using calling cards. We didn't have like
Yes. Yes.
we didn't have FaceTime or any of those types of things. So it was a struggle just communicating with family. And there was the dynamics of that makes it very hard in regards to like maintaining relationships. And I could see how that could have an impact. And I wanted to know if you could share what was that like for you, as in, you know, times have changed where things are much, much, much more easier. And there may be someone right now that's listening to this podcast that's struggling with either a long distance relationship, either with their parents or their loved ones or something like that. But can you talk about what were some of the things that you did to maintain that level of communication with your family and your loved ones while you were overseas?
A few things that I did to maintain the connection was I would send postcards. They would take a while to get there, but like if I went to Paris for the weekend, which we did sometimes, or if I was in Luxembourg or Sweden, I always got postcards,
Hmm.
and they would get there eventually. I had a set time to call, so we were all on the same accord in terms of I would when they could expect communication. That was important. So we had these rituals around connecting, and then sometimes I would send pretty long emails where I
Hmm.
would attach kind of really detailed about what my experience is like, because people don't know what to ask
Hmm.
if they haven't lived the experience that you're living. And
Right,
so
right,
it's
right, right.
your responsibility. You can take on the responsibility of bringing them into your world by sharing the exciting and not so exciting things that are happening in your life.
Most definitely. So we know the sport of basketball, playing it, came to an end for you. So can you talk a little bit about what was that like when it came to that, or did you knew that this was the end, or did it abruptly happen? And what was that transition like for you when you decided to hang it up and then transition into a different space into the world of basketball?
I decided to get married. So I was missing the love of my life at 20, whatever, 22, 23. And so I decided to come back after Germany and get married and go to grad school and start coaching. And
Hmm.
that transition was hard because I saw myself as a basketball player for so long.
Yeah.
And it took a really long time to say, no, I used to play. No, I don't play.
Hmm.
Because you always feel like they're questioning if you still can play or not.
Right,
It's
right,
like, of
right.
course I can, but I don't. But I started coaching, and that's every athlete knows it's the next best thing to playing. And so I coached at Metro High School, Webster University, Southeast Missouri State University, Director of Ops at Marquette University. And so I really enjoy the coaching side as well.
I was going to ask you, what was the beneficial aspects of coaching basketball, knowing that you've played it, but now you're seeing kids living up some of the dreams that you had growing up as a kid?
The beneficial aspects are really knowing that you have the opportunity to teach them from what you've learned, that you
Hmm.
can inspire them and push them to be greater than they even know they can be, the same
Hmm.
way people did that for me. And you get to open doors of access to opportunity for them that they don't even know they need. at the
Mhm.
time. And so I loved coaching. Loved coaching. Was a really good time.
So I heard something in your story that I think about from one of my favorite movie, Love and Basketball.
Okay.
And you chose to come back to the States and you chose to get married. Can you talk a little bit about the decision? That's a big decision to choose to leave what you're doing, your profession, your career, and make that transition. Can you talk how heavily, how deeply did you go into this and saying, this is the decision that I'm going to make, and I'm going to stick with this and see this through?
Well, I made the decision. I was homesick. Like I know now, knowing now what I know then, I was just homesick and we decided to get married, but we're not married anymore. So it only
Mhm,
lasted a couple of years. And
mhm,
after it ended, I thought about, well, maybe I should go play again, but
mhm.
I didn't. So I made the decision that I thought was best at the time, but I
Right.
don't necessarily know if I would make that decision. Like if I would advise that decision because you only have so many years as an athlete. Like that literally comes to an end. And so I probably would have tried to help. I probably would advise figuring out how to make it work while
Mhm.
still pursuing something that has a finite time.
So I wanted to jump on this because I'm a person that loves to travel, and you've done a good bit of that. And you actually lived in a place that I would love to visit. I've never visited before. So you did a move to Colombia, and you actually started a company in regards to public relations and things like that. I want to understand, how do those two tie in together, and why did you just choose to start this company in regards to making a significant impact in that particular space?
I moved to Medellin, Colombia
I
because
hear the language or the
yes,
dialect
Colón,
there.
Colombia. I have some friends who live there, some really close
Uh-huh.
friends. And this was right after the pandemic when I decided to go and visit because, like everyone else, I was rethinking how do I want to experience life? Where do I want to be? And I wanted to be warm. I wanted to see the mountains. I wanted it to be walkable. There was all of these things I wanted to experience, and I went to visit there. Loved it. I can book my flight back before I left on my trip. I was like, "Oh, I'm coming back March 1st," and I did that. And so the agency started out of me thinking about what skill sets do I have, what do I enjoy doing, and what can I do remote and virtual that still helps people's lives.
Right.
We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I have to mention it that I published a few books. And because I published my books, I did all of the outreach myself. My background's communication.
I see. I
So
see.
fast forward to Colombia, I decided, well, how about I help people get more exposure for their businesses or for their
Mhm.
books and share their stories. And I reached out to a few people and they said yes, they needed help. And so I have no problem being told no. So I will reach out to people all day long. And some will reject me, some won't. I think it comes from basketball, right? You just
Yeah,
bounce
yeah, yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's how the agency started. ALA Public Relations started with me living in Medellin, Colombia, wanting to still help people, but be able to still live life the way that I wanted to on my terms.
Absolutely. I love the story. So I want to touch on your parents because they seem to be a significant supporting factor and aspect in regards to your success and getting you to basketball, but more so, even sounds like when you even traveled, you were still in communication with them. And family is super, super important to me. So can you talk a little bit about how important your parents was in your life, even passing childhood, just being an adult and just supporting all of your entrepreneurial aspects and things like that?
I've been gifted with two amazing parents who always told me to try and to go for it. And my mom is from a small town in Mississippi called Mount Bayou. It's the oldest all black municipality in the US.
Uh-huh.
And my father is from Robinsonville, Mississippi. And so I heard a lot of stories of what they went through, literally sharecropping, picking cotton. Like they had to fight for the things that we often take for granted. And so what's in me is knowing that okay, on my worst day, it's not as bad as one of their worst days that
Yeah,
they've had. And it's just a gift to have their support, unwavering support and positivity and encouragement. So I'm forever grateful for their love, their light, and who they've been for me.
absolutely. So I know that my dad recently was experiencing some prostate cancer issue, and me and my family rushed to his aid in regards to making sure he was fine and all of learning more about prostate cancer because I didn't really take it that serious personally for myself because I consider myself young.
Hmm.
So, you know, we started digging into it and learning about it, and when this adversity hit our family, we was like, all right, we need to take this much more serious and more health conscious around a lot of things that we were doing. You know, learning more about your story, that your parents did all this stuff for you, but now your parents are getting there up in age and they're being impacted by some of these health issues. I noticed that you made it important to yourself to help them, be there for them as much as they were for you. Can you talk a little bit or shed some light in regards to some of those adversities that your parents was dealing with and how important it was for you in regards to being there to support them to get through this, knowing that they helped you out so much growing up as a kid as well?
Sure. Both of my parents have had a series of health issues. Mom will be 82 in November, dad is 84. And probably over the last 10 years, these past 10 years have been really challenging, from heart attacks to strokes to, cancer, lung cancer, just a series. Thank God that they're still here. But I made the decision to move in with them and to support them and to help them through that. And that was hard, seeing your parents struggle. Anyone who has parents who are aging, it's really hard because they were your rock, and they were the ones who were always so active and able. So it was a gift to be able to support them, and it was challenging to see the impact that that level of stress can have on a caregiver. So the one side is I was really happy and grateful to be able to support them. The other side is I didn't realize how much support that I actually needed to support me as I supported them. And that was a challenge. That was definitely a challenge.
So your story tells me a lot that you're super resilient and you have a lot of bounce back to you. So
Mhm.
what were some things that you put in place to help you deal with childhood trauma, a divorce? Some
Mhm.
of the, maybe you may have been mentally or emotionally affected of what took place when you went to the basketball tryouts and what happened there. Then going through divorce, dealing with what your parents went through at in their 80s. Where did that come from, and what did you do to help you get over those issues and things like that? Because to the average person, some people may break down and can't
Mhm.
handle that or can't deal with that. What are some things that you did where you could share with our listeners that's listening that they could take some nuggets away from that and start putting in their lives as well too?
Well, breaking down is normal, and I definitely had my moments. Tons
Mhm.
of tears, tons of prayers, and trying to figure out what's the next best step. What's important is to have people that you can confide in, people with sound minds that you can confide in, who
Right,
are
right.
objective, can help you see clearly. Therapy, of course, helps. I've gone to therapy, but then most recently last year I hired a health and wellness coach. Best decision of my life. And I learned how to take care of myself. Obviously talked about my background in sports, so I knew how to compete and I knew how to train to be an athlete. But at 40, like, I don't need to do the things I did then, and my metabolism isn't what it used to be. So I literally had to learn how to care for myself in the way that I was caring for other people, and I needed professional help. So
Hmm.
I would say for others, get really honest about what your struggles are and find the professionals who can help you with that. There are some free resources online, of course, but pick one person to help you because there's so much information. So if you need help with your mental health, find like one person to help you with that. Find one person to help you with health and wellness, nutrition, so you can have these specialists in your life to ensure that you're able to live out the life that you most desire for yourself.
I wanna ask you a follow question to that. How is it today that Angela is balancing life? If you balance life, I've spoken to some people before, and they don't care for the balance of life. They just love certain aspects of life and just kind of go with the flow. So for yourself, how is it that you're managing running a business, you're managing your personal life, and still trying to enjoy life and all of those aspects of things? How do you like find time for you to make sure that I'm fine and I'm sound mentally, emotionally, and physically?
One of the best decisions that I made was to go to Medellin, Colombia. So leaving the country helped. I don't know if everyone, if that's viable, but if you're listening and you can leave, change of environment is really what I'm getting at. So you don't necessarily have to leave the country, but I knew that I needed a change of environment because where I wasn't best for me because of who I was being. So I needed I needed a reset. So how do I do that today? One, I'm really clear about nutrition and health. That's my priority. At the end of the day, we have to prioritize. So my health and wellness over everything else, because when that's in play, then I'm able to do business well. I'm able to have great relationships and I'm able to give to people in a way that's meaningful.
Wow, wow,
So
wow,
take
wow,
care
wow.
of yourself first in all of the ways, and then everything else.
So what's next for Angela Lewis? You've accomplished so many things that some people only hope and dream, or is listen to your story and is empowered to like, yes, I could do that. So what's next for you on your big bucket list, hopes and dreams?
What's next is just to be consistent and to be excellent, and everything else builds from there.
Mhm.
So to be excellent with my clients, to be excellent with the work, and to take care of myself in all of the ways that I know are necessary.
Absolutely,
Everything else flows from there.
absolutely. So hearing your story now, for that listener that's listening, what are some lessons and some life tips that you could leave with them as some actionable things that they could do and impart into their lives today?
Action tips. Sometimes the things that we go through are so big and seem so difficult to tackle all at one time. So I would ask myself, what is the next best step? Like, what's one more thing that I can do to get a little closer to the goal? That's one. The second thing is, we can't control other people. And my life changed dramatically when I stopped trying to manage how other people felt about a situation. Like if you're honest and authentic about how you feel and your intention is pure, then you have to let it go because we'll drive ourselves crazy. So let it go if you can't control it. And then the third thing, of course, is to keep bouncing back. Like things just don't always work out as we plan, but just keep moving forward and enjoy the process.
Absolutely. So if anybody wanted to work with you or do business with you or get you on their podcast or find out more about some speaking engagement with you, how could they get a hold of you, Angela?
You can contact me on IG, Angela Lewis underscore PR. You can go to my website, alapublicrelations.com, or you can email me, Angela at alapublicrelations.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Angela, thank you so much for coming on the Overcoming Adversity podcast to share your story. It's absolutely inspiring to hear it. I wanted to talk to you because I'm a basketball fan and I love your story of the inspiration behind it. Coming from where you come from, being vulnerable and transparent to share your story, especially being a woman. Sometimes we don't want to talk about some of these things, vocalize some of these things that affect us and impact us. And to hear your story of resilience and overcoming that and bouncing back and now living the life of giving back to people, I just truly, truly want to applaud you for that. So thank you for coming on here.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. All right, guys, if you like this episode, make sure you leave a comment, make sure you like and subscribe and share it to somebody that this could make an impact into their lives. So until next time, God bless.
Can't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.